how many know this, but you guys know I'm still in the process. I'm still going through classes, so I'm currently in a class right now in NNU through Northwest Nazarene University. And this past week, we dealt a little bit in our discussion about relationships that we have. And there was a woman in my class that made a comment, and in that comment, I just continued to think about the prodigal son. And I continued to think about that, and I continued to think about relationships. I hope everybody's all right out there. Okay, Courtney's out there. Okay. I didn't hear any screaming, so I assumed. And then later in the week, so on Thursday, the zone, our Southern Hills zone pastors, we in the Nazarene Church, we get together about once a month. We gather at someone's church and pray together and talk and discuss struggles and discuss victories and all that. And this past week was a time where all the pastors in the zone came to visit our space, and they came and they prayed for all of you guys, and they prayed for our church, and they prayed for myself and Adam and our family, and it was just this wonderful time. It's always a wonderful time when we're able to get together. And so this last week, I've really thought about relationships, and I've thought about, the relationship that we're offered with God through Christ. And I think about a relationship. It's Father's Day, right? So we think about relationships that we have with our parents, and we can just, this last week was just a reflection for me to be how grateful I was for those relationships that I had. I'm grateful for parents who have always loved me. Hi, Mom and Dad. They always watch when they're not here. I'm grateful for parents that have always loved me and always wanted the best for me, and I knew that they always loved me, even in those moments when I made those decisions that didn't necessarily, they question whether that was the best decision, we'll put it that way, right? It's that continual love. I'm grateful for relationships that I have with people that just continue to pour into you, right? It's those overflowing people that just continue to pour life into your life, and I'm thankful for those relationships. Now, I do understand, even though it's Father's Day and even though we're talking about relationships, that not everybody always has a really great relationships with their parents, right? Not everybody has really great relationships with everybody else. There's sometimes those relationships that honoring those relationships look a little different than other ones. And so maybe when I say the prodigal son, maybe when I say we're going to talk about that this morning, maybe you don't know what that relationship's like, where the father goes down the road to greet the son. Maybe there's people listening, watching, or maybe people here that if you made some of the decisions the prodigal son made, maybe you feel like you wouldn't have been welcomed home again into the Father's arm. And I recognize that, and I understand that, and I want to say I'm sorry if I'm bringing up those emotions on today, because that's not my intent. My intent is just to talk about relationships. But anyway, we are going to talk about the prodigal son. We're going to be in Luke chapter 15. To start this off, though, I want to kind of set us up and to see what it is, where we are. Jesus has just been telling some parables to those gathering around, and in the beginning of Luke chapter 14, We have that Jesus just healed a man on the Sabbath, and then Jesus goes through some parables, and then at the beginning of chapter 15, the Pharisees and the teachers of the law start muttering. There in verse 2, this man welcomes sinners and eats with them. And so in response to that, Jesus tells some other parables, and he tells the parable of the lost sheep, and he tells the parable of the lost coin, and he tells the parable of the lost son, or the prodigal son. We might know it again as that. And then, so we're going to read part of this, but I'm not going to have us read the whole thing. So I'm going to bring us into this. We're going to focus on a few verses in this. I'm going to paraphrase the rest of the information. So basically, the parable is this father has 2 sons, and the youngest son decides that he wants to do this thing on his own, right? He is, for whatever reason, it doesn't really tell us the reason, for whatever reason, he decides that he's going to go to the father and he's going to say, I want my share of the estate. I want to go off on my own. And so there's kind of this doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's kind of a slap in the face to the father, right? It's kind of this, I don't want to have anything to do with you. I don't care about your future, right? Because when he takes his estate, so since the father's still living, it would have been a third of the estate because it was the older brother and the father and the younger brother, right? And so he would have had a third of the estate. We know what it's like. Like, if you have that money to invest, a lot of times you get more money out of it, right? So it's kind of this, I don't care about your future or this family's future. I only care about my future. And so he takes a third of it, and essentially he is telling the father through his actions, I don't care. I don't care about you. I don't care about your future. I don't care about the future of our family. I don't care. And so the younger son goes off and he does his own thing, and he gets himself into pretty terrible circumstances, and eventually he is taking care of pigs, right? And he's hungry. He has nothing to eat. And this child is what they describe in the biblical text at the end of himself. In verse 17, it says, when he came to his senses. Maybe sometimes we might describe this as kind of a rude awakening, right? He's come to the point where he's realized what he has done and realized the poor choices that he has made. And then he decides at this point he's going to go home and asked to be hired as a servant, because even being a servant in his father's house would be a better place than where he is right now. At least he would have something to eat, right? And so this is the part of the story that I want us to start reading in, let's see, in verse 20. Let me find it. So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to the father, or to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you, and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For the son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and then he was found. So they began to celebrate. So this text tells us that while the son was a long ways off, when the son was a long ways off, the father goes out running for him. Now, we covered this we kind of covered this information a while ago. I don't know if it was when I maybe when I was first your head pastor, somewhere. It was within the last couple of years. But the father taking off running is something that no respectable man at that time would have done. Now, there's a reason for the father to take off running. There would have been this ceremony that would have happened, that where when someone has left the community and has dishonored the community and has dishonored their family, if they try to come back into the community, the older men would go to the edge of town and would throw pots. And throwing pots, that broken pot would be a symbol of you have broken your relationship, you have broken your ties with this community, you are no longer welcome. You are not welcome in this community. And so in that ceremony, sometimes the mothers would go to that ceremony just to plead or whatever. Maybe they didn't want to. But the fathers in that ceremony, they always stayed home. And so to think about this father running to his son who has dishonored his family, who is running to his son so that this ceremony doesn't take place, and he's running, something that a respectable man doesn't do. The fact that he jumped those boundaries tells us a little bit something about his heart, the father's heart. The father broke all customs and goes to the son, running to him with open arms. An amazing picture. And then another thing that got me this week was where he says, bring out the best robe and put it on him, put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. This isn't just a let's welcome him home. This is a let's welcome him home and welcome him back into a place of honor. Let's put a robe on him and a ring on him and sandals on his feet. And while you're at it, I want you to kill the fattened calf because we're going to celebrate. We're going to feast. We're going to celebrate this. That my son who was once dead is alive again. My son who was once lost is now found. The father defies all kinds of customs to do this for his son. Now, as happens with siblings, the brother has a little bit of problem with this. The brother realizes what is happening, and the brother that the younger brother had come home, and that the father was opening him or welcoming him with open arms, and he was saying, bring the robe, bring the ring, let's kill the fattened calf, let's have this celebration. And the younger son sometimes as the older son, sometimes as older sons do, they kind of get in there a little bit, right? In verse 30, the older brother says, but with this son of yours who has squandered your property with prostitutes comes home to you, you kill the fattened calf for him. He's kind of taken that, twisting that, just reminding the father what the younger brother has done to him. Not only has he taken a third of the estate and squandered it, not only has he done that, but he has done that with prostitutes. Like he has squandered the lineage of this family. I don't think the older brother's like, I don't think you understand what he has done. And the father looks at him and says, "You're always with me, and everything I have is yours," but we have to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. The Father's saying, we aren't celebrating what he has done. We aren't celebrating that. We aren't celebrating that he got lost. We're not celebrating that he was dead. What we're celebrating is that he's alive. We're celebrating that he is found. I don't know if you've recognized in these parables that Jesus tells, the parable of the sheep, the parable of the lost coin, the parable of the lost son. In all of these things, the thing that was lost belonged with whatever it was lost to, right? The one sheep that ran off belonged with the other 99, right? The one coin that was lost belonged with the other coins. The son that was lost belonged in that community. And that's what they were celebrating. The fact that the community was once again whole. That's what the celebration was. That's when that celebration usually happens when someone comes to themselves and realizes, when someone comes to their senses and realizes that they belong to part of a community. There's a community that they belong to. And the son was desperate to come back into that community where he belonged. And he didn't even care if he took the lowest stature in that community. I will be a servant in that community as long as I can be part of that community again. And the oldest son, he said he shouldn't be part of this community anymore. Like, he left his place. He's no longer part of the community. Now, remembering that it's Father's Day, I want us to sit with this for a moment and just recognize how a parent would feel in this moment. This child that was lost is now found. This child that they didn't know what had happened to that child at all. They didn't know whether the child was dead or not. And so it's just this, they were dead and now alive again, right? Imagine, if you will, this moment where a child would say, I don't care about this family's future. I want my inheritance now. I mean, something was going wrong. We don't know what it was. Or maybe the youngest son felt like he could just do better on his own, that he could make his own decisions, that he knew better. Everybody remembers those moments when they thought, well, I know more than my parents, right? Maybe it was just me. And so the father acquiesced. The father gives him, the youngest son, the portion of his inheritance, and the father just gives it to him, and he walks away. Can you imagine that? And the youngest son goes out, and the parents don't know what's happened. They don't know what's happening to him. A part of them is lost too, right? A part of them is no longer around, and they feel that void. And then one day down the road, there's a figure that looks much like their child that walked away from them. And the father is so elated. He steps out of the cultural norms and runs, and he doesn't allow that ceremony of broken pots, and he runs to his son with open arms. And then the father demands that there be a celebration, that the part of the community that was missing is now home. Yet his son did these things. Some of these things the sibling felt was unforgivable. But the key points to these parables is that the things that were once lost are now found. He welcomes sinners and eats with them. And Jesus says, those that were once lost are now found. They came back to the place that they were intended to be. We found them. What greater joy in life of a parent is when our children who maybe have wandered away or have gone down a path that we don't necessarily think they want to go down. We don't feel like they always understand the implications of going down that path. What greater joy from a parent when a child comes to the realization themselves and goes, you know what? Maybe I was wrong. What a celebration, right? What a celebration. And when I think about that kind of a celebration that happened, that kind of celebration where the son comes home, I think that's probably the same celebration that happens in heaven when someone realizes that their place is at the Father's house, right? That same celebration that happens in a church when someone who has been separated from community comes into community, right? They decide they want to have a relationship with the Father, and they're ready to live their life that way. So maybe maybe some of you guys had that, where with your earthly parents, you would not have had that welcome home, that celebration. But I can tell you, when you come and realize that you have a place in the house of the Father, when you realize you have this relationship, you have this place within the community that God has given, that there's a Father that loves you, that welcomes you with open arms, that runs down the road for you. And I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I just have to sit in that moment and just remember that there's a Father who went looking for me. I went looking for you and celebrated knowing that you were coming back into the community, that you were finding your place within the community. There's a Father that went to the farthest hill searching for you. There's someone that would come running when they saw you coming home. Our last song today, we're not going to sing. I mean, you can sing if you want to sing it. But this song just continued to run through my mind this week, and I didn't feel comfortable singing it, so I'm having Adam play a video, but I'm making sure that he has the words, the closed captioning on. This song is Homecoming. It's been out for a while, but it's this idea of This is the homecoming. This is the celebration. This is what happens when we realize that we're at the end of ourselves and that we need this relationship with God. We need to come into that community. One of the lines that gets me every time, and I can tell you right now, I'm probably going to be crying as we listen to this song, but one of the lines that gets me every time is a line where it says, I've stolen your breath and sang my own song. That recognizing that sometimes we decide to go on our own paths in life and not go down the path that God has asked us to go down and not to do the things that God has asked us to do. And so we've taken the breath that He has placed in our lungs and we have done our own thing with it. At one point of time or another in our lives, we have probably taken these gifts that God has given to us, this breath in our lungs, this life that we have, and we have squandered it. We have done things with it that maybe He didn't want us to. And maybe it was bad things. Maybe it was just, we shouldn't be doing that kind of things. Like not all of us has gone down the path where we've gone to extremes, but there's been times when we've decided we're going to make our own decisions, right? And what we're called to do is repent of that, to turn away and walk back into that community where we say, Lord, you can have my life, you can have all of me to use as you want to. Lord, continue to guide. And I'm so thankful that we have Heavenly Father who desires that community with us, that runs down the road for us and with open arms and says, we're going to celebrate. And this song, as I said, it's called Homecoming, and it's that idea of that homecoming when we realize that we have tried to do our own things and now we need God, but there's that aspect to it of the homecoming, like what is that going to look like in heaven when we get there? What is that going to look like? It's just, there's a whole bunch of different layers to the song of homecoming, and I pray that we can reflect during the song. If you know this song, you can sing it out if you want to and sing along. If you want to just read the words and reflect, you can. If you want to get into a position of prayer, you can, and just listen to it. If there's a prodigal that you are praying for and you just want to pray for them, you can pray for them in your seat, or you can come up here. The altars are always open. Remember that. You can pray wherever, whatever it is that God has led you to do during the song. I just pray that we reflect on the words of it and just recognize the celebration and recognize that we have this wonderful relationship that we can have with God, and that He just loves us so much. Maybe it's like the beginning of our first song. I thank God. Just when I ran out of road, I met a man I didn't know. Just when I got to the end of myself. And maybe we just want to celebrate that fact. And maybe that's what we want to reflect on in this. I want us to just listen to the song, and then I will go ahead and pray after the song is over, and then we can head out of here. But I want us to just pay attention to the words. Adam, go ahead and play this song.